Good evening.
Stevie Crazy Man here with this month's collection of fun goofs from classic television from way back in the 60s. Oh, and a few from the 50s too, for good measure. With I Dream of Jeannie, the Flintstones, Bullwinkle and Rocky, The Outer Limits, and Alfred Hitchcock. I Dream of Jeannie is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. The four-part saga Jeannie, Jeannie, Who's Got the Genie, though, has some big humdingers that I missed on my last I Dream of Jeannie Goose video. The story starts out where Jeannie and Major Nelson are at the base in a storage room where she accidentally gets locked into a safe on the way to the moon. Now we all know that Barbara Eden is a living doll, but in this scene they carried it just a little too far, don't you think? Later they use the same kind of doll for Major Nelson when he gets shrunk by Jeannie's evil sister. Then they use the same kind of doll for Nelson and Healy. Luckily for them, Ted Cassidy did not crush them. Now this saga scenario is hilarious for a lot of reasons. Now Jeannie's in a safe headed to the moon.
Tomorrow morning at sunrise, that rocket is blasting off to the moon with the safe and other
with contents that are supposedly just filled with bare essentials for an astronaut, such as, vitamins, chapstick, and matches. Now this safe is set to explode if it's not opened correctly.
The explosive will be detonated, destroying the safe and the contents.
Isn't space travel dangerous enough without adding a bomb to it?
That's a good question.
And just how are you supposed to use matches in space anyway?
We're going to have to get some professional advice.
On top of that, no one knows the combination of the safe except the President of the United States of America. Was the President going to call the astronaut on the moon and tell him how to open it?
I won't be able to explain this if I live to be your age.
I guess you could see this as a realistic depiction of how the government uses our tax dollars.
Now you know that's impossible.
It sort of shows us how government types think, but I Dream of Jeannie isn't usually known for such realism. Here's one I forgot in my recent Flintstones Goose video. The original ending of the show featured Wilma with no mouth, which is actually a little spooky looking. Now here's some from the Alfred Hitchcock show. In the episode Revenge, which is a basic Hitchcock crime drama with a twist, nothing supposedly sci-fi is going on in this episode, but the characters Carl and Elsa appear to have driven into a time loop, as not only do they pass the same section of town within the same few moments, but you can see the exact same ladies doing the exact same thing twice.
How he does go on.
In the episode Toby, this lady has a bottle of milk in her hand, but as she turns to open the door, the milk has just gone poof. The hand is quicker than the eye. But even the man standing next to her seems to be wondering where that milk has gone.
It was a clever little trick, wasn't it?
Now don't you think it's always nice when a criminal type is trying to move a dead body around and the body helps out? In the episode, Mother May I Go Out to Swim, we see a reoccurring issue with William Shatner and huge rocks. Notice how the huge rock easily shifts when he sits down. Same kind of stuff happens on Star Trek too. Maybe Shatner is super strong, or maybe he really does come from outer space. Who knows?
That was amusing.
There's a cuckoo fireplace in the episode The Cuckoo Clock. First it's completely out, and then it's freshly started with a tiny flame. And then it looks like it went completely out again, then a few words later, and it's a flaming fire.
Little things which, if you don't find, you may regret for the rest of your life.
In the episode, The Throwback, when Hardin challenges Elliot to a fight, he rolls up his shirt sleeves. But his right shirt sleeve just won't stay rolled up. He even has to unbutton it again.
Drinking, let's get started.
This is about the nuttiest thing I ever heard of.
In the episode, Cop for a Day, Walter Matthau seems to have a slight blooper that made it to air when he says his line.
Hey, can you identify those both men?
Hey, can you identify those both men?
He may have delivered his line wrong as an act of realism because people in real life rarely speak perfect English. I mean, I know I don't, which is a way you can definitely tell I'm not an artificial intelligence, by the way, or maybe even regular intelligence for that matter.
And now my head seems to be rushing someplace. Oh!
In the episode, Beta Delta Gamma, Barbara Steele's character lights or is about to light the same cigarette 3 times in less than 30 seconds. Either that or she is the fastest chain smoker I've ever seen.
I must say that I am disturbed.
Here's one from the Alfred Hitchcock Hour with a very young Dean Stockwell from Quantum Leap. Talk about parking too close to somebody, come on! Well, at least somebody moved back so Dean could walk through. But can you imagine somebody having the nerve to park that close to a cop car?
I'd rather not.
We will control all that you see and hear.
This first one doesn't really rise to the level of a goof, but I think it's interesting. In the episode The Sixth Finger, Knight Rider's Edward Mulhare turns the man from U.N.C.L.'s David McCallum into a super advanced alien-looking creature with a big head. Gotta give him credit on this one. That's probably one of the best looking makeup jobs they had on this show. McCallum's character throws the professor for a loop, but if you look really carefully, you can see how they pull this trick off. There's a line connector to the stuntman's back. They used to yank him back, giving the illusion he was knocked down from a psychic brain blast. Before that scene, McCallum's character looks out the window where apparently the world is nothing more than a still photograph. Check out the 2 people that appear frozen on your right.
Something invading our time-space continuum.
The episode Corpus Earthling, starring Robert Culp from I Spy and the Greatest American Hero, features a fight scene between Culp's character and a zombie-looking dude possessed by an alien. After Culp stabs the zombie, the alien-possessed man appears to pull it out of his chest. And then he finally falls, but it's still there. Now surely he didn't put the knife back in.
I haven't the slightest idea.
Then this weird creature comes oozing out of him that if you look real close appears to be connected to thin strings. In the episode The Xanthi Misfits, the military is in contact with this bug from space, and everyone is completely serious. I mean deadly serious. Except one guy that has a hard time not cracking up after he hears the aliens talking.
They've blent so our land's tree of tree. They've blent so our land's tree of tree.
For some reason I didn't really notice the guy to your left is about to crack up too. Someone pointed that out to me in the comments from my Outer Limits video. When the aliens attack later in the episode, you can see their shadows climbing down a window, but their legs never move. I think they wasted a lot of ammunition on these things when a few cans of Raid would have done the job nicely. In the episode The Mice, this man named Chino is sitting next to Dr. Julia Harrison. He stands up shoulder to her shoulder, but then the camera changes and he's gone, but he's not seated out of the way because a few seconds later, we again see him standing right where we last saw him. That episode also has this, which I'm not sure if this is a jello monster or a snot creature. I'm pretty sure its very existence is a goof though. One thing I found curious about the alien in the episode The Children of Spider County is why the alien spaceship had what appears to be an Air Force logo on it. In this episode that stars Star Trek's Leonard Nimoy, they don't seem to make floors and walls quite as sturdy, and scientific equipment as heavy as they used to, as the entire room seems to shake when this guy comes in.
There is nothing wrong with your television set.
One of my favorite episodes of Outer Limits was Soldier, written by Harlan Ellison. It went beyond the Monster of the Week format and focused on time travel and 2 crazed soldiers from the future. Great episode, but there's a couple of weird things to mention about the climactic battle at the end. Like, how is this cat still sitting there while these guys are fighting? My cat runs if there's a shadow that moves too fast. The cat finally runs off, I guess, when these guys vaporize themselves in the ashes. Then the ashes disappear, and then the cat runs back to investigate the ashes that are now back again. Crazy what we can see now with our wider screens where less is cut off than what they had in the 60s. Now we can see a helping hand holding the laser gun for the crazed man of the future, which ought to have shown him he didn't really need to be in such a bad mood the whole time. In the episode Wolf 359, Patrick O'Neill thinks he's alone, but there is somebody in the mirror before the regularly scheduled creature shows up. Is it a crewman? Or foreshadowing that something crazy is about to happen? I, Robot is another great episode from the original Outer Limits starring Leonard Nimoy. It's so good it would be redone in '95 for the new Outer Limits. Leonard Nimoy would once again star in that episode as well. But there's a real neat goof hidden in the original. In a dramatic ending, a truck barrels down a street, a little girl jumps out in front of it, the robot grabs the girl and throws her in the arms of Leonard Nimoy, saving the girl but getting hit by the truck. The goof happens in the seconds that the truck hits the robot. Or does it? Notice the car in the background, it actually is going backwards, which means they must have ran the film backwards. The Premonition, I'd say, is probably my favorite out of all of them. It feels like a Twilight Zone episode. The story features a test pilot who, along with his wife, becomes trapped in a moment of time, while his daughter's life is on the line. To catch a couple of goofs on this one, you have to really be looking hard. I'll admit that it was probably impossible to see on television sets back in the 60s, but just for fun, let's check it out. And keep in mind, everyone in the world is basically frozen in time, moving only a fraction of an inch every few minutes or so, except of course our two main characters, and the traffic way in the background.
We will control all that you see and hear.
This next one I call The Strange Case of the Frozen Disappearing Boys. Notice that one boy is next to the entranceway, and the other boy is right under what looks like a crude picture of a fish, maybe, I'm not sure. Our test pilot runs right past that point, and the boys seem to have disappeared. Then they show us the same still of the boys, I guess just to let us know that they are still there. The test pilot and his wife walk back out past the fish picture, and the boys are definitely not there. Then they give us that same last shot of the boys to let us know that they were there the whole time, and I guess we just didn't see them. Here's another scene where the pilot is running around that same fence as before. Somebody in the background didn't get to notice that he was supposed to be frozen.
Do not attempt to adjust the picture.
On the episode The Probe, they used the split screen technique to make common ordinary science tools look like giant equipment. But if you look carefully at the base, you can see that it's constantly moving up and down.
You are about to participate in a great adventure.
And now, how about some crazy Rocky and Bullwinkle goofs? In the very first episode, the number of Bullwinkle's keys keep changing, but that's not really the disturbing part. They hadn't quite figured out where Bullwinkle's mouth should go yet. It looks like he's talking out of his nose. Here's an example of where Bullwinkle's mouth would appear usually. You see, normally his mouth is under his nose, not on top of his nose.
Oh, that is pretty ridiculous, isn't it? But it's bad enough.
The man you love to hate.
Also, Boris started out almost as tall as Natasha, but by the second episode, he had shrunk a lot. Which brings us to the second goof, which I think caused Boris to become much shorter, as a safe falls on his head. Notice the broken underground pipe is broken before the safe hits it, which you would likely assume should be the cause of the pipe being broken in the first place. Boris and Natasha are sleeping on the couch. When Boris wakes up, Natasha is gone. But then later we see she is really still sleeping on the couch.
Don't you believe it?
Here's a real mind bender. A travel agency window is not broken. Then it's broken. Then Boris is shown throwing a brick through it, which seems to heal the broken glass. Then he sticks his hand through a solid window to steal 2 tickets. I wonder if the producer, Jay Ward, being the forward thinker that he was, set this up just for me to find and puzzle over. Back then when the show was made, spell check didn't exist, and who cares about spelling anyway on a cartoon, right? But it is interesting how spelling errors popped up, and it makes you wonder which ones were on purpose and which ones were real goofs.
All in fever say aye. All in fever say aye.
Rock around the clock.
Was it Rocky or Rock Around the Clock?
Rock around the clock.
We'll see next time in Go Down Mooses or The Fall Guy.
Was it Mooses or Moses?
We'll see next time in Go Down Mooses or The Fall Guy.
In Season 2, Bullwinkle proves he can talk without moving his lips while drinking water.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. You know, there's kind of an echo around here.
Watch this guard's uniform and glasses change right before your eyes.
They'll come back in the morning.
Will somebody see us?
I don't know, but I'll be off duty then.
I've heard of that, but I never really thought it happened. Right now, why not pull off the knob that changes the channels?
On NBC's original airing, Bullwinkle the puppet got fired for telling kids to take the knobs off their television sets, because thousands actually did it.
And that way you'll be sure to be with us next week.
Here's a standard practice in animation that creates a narrative goof in this particular episode. In order to save time drawing, animators would often use the same background over and over again as a character runs by. But in this case, the character, a potter, runs by his own potter's shop 3 times on the way home.
That voice, where is it coming from?
And now, let's go back to the Stone Age for some Flintstone goofs. In the original intro to the series, Fred stops by a policeman directing traffic, but his car is positioned in such a way in front of the cop that gives the impression the cop is a giant of a man. In the first season episode, The Sweepstakes Ticket, Fred climbs into Barney's house to get back his ticket. But why does he need a ladder? Isn't Barney's house just 1 floor? And why go through Barney's bedroom first anyway? I'm just wondering.
Don't listen to him. You know good guys.
Police to 345 Stone Cave Road.
And where does Fred really live at? I mean, I've heard his address been given as Cobblestone Lane, Cavestone Road, Stone Canyon Way, Cobblestone Way. Just where does Fred live at anyway? Not counting the intro, Dino first appeared in episode 4, No Help Wanted, but his origin story didn't come until episode 18, The Snorkosaurus Hunter. The episodes were run out of order, which, when you throw in the creative curve where characters change as they develop, you get a confusing episode where Dino appears to have the intelligence and communication skills of any human.
Oh, I am such a forgetful dunce.
Kind of reminds me of Top Cat. During the early days, they had a hard time figuring out which color they wanted to stick with, too. On the Snorkosaurus episode, there's a few instances where you can see where Dino's neck, which is a different cell than the body, didn't quite fit seamlessly. Hanna-Barbera used separate picture cells for the body and the head to make animation faster. That way they didn't have to draw the body every time they moved the head.
It's for you, madame.
Thank you, Dino.
Sometimes, Hanna-Barbera's fast-paced schedule would cause voices to get mismatched, making it appear in this case that Betty had somehow just possessed Wilma.
Drop in sometime to say hello. Drop in sometime to say hello.
Going back to Hanna-Barbera's use of separate cells for the head and body, it could sometimes create some scary-looking scenes, as in this one where Fred's head disappears for a second.
Changing 1 tire was bad enough, but all 4. Changing 1 tire was bad enough, but all 4.
I love this program. Makes you feel so intelligent.
In the episode Bowling Ballet, Fred, Barney, Wilma, and Betty are walking home after the bowling game, but Fred and Barney had driven there. Wilma and Betty just sort of showed up. Here's a question for you. Does Fred work for the Rockhead and Quarry Construction Company? Or for the Bedrock Gravel Company? I'm just asking because I don't know.
Oh, boy.
In the episode Baby Barney, Fred and Barney pass the same hotel 3 times. Actually, using the same background over and over in a walking scene is standard practice in animation to save time drawing, but it is funny to notice if you just happen to see it. That one's not a goof. Yeah, I just love that scene.
Okay, big mouth.
In the episode Nothing But the Tooth, Barney visits the dentist and gets filled with gas, which leads him and Fred floating in the air with Fred's car. But what I don't understand is why Fred's car changes color. In the episode Fred's New Job, Fred's boss, Mr. Slate, acts like he doesn't recognize Barney when in an earlier episode called Fred's New Boss, Mr. Slate found out that Barney was his nephew. Of course, I don't believe nothing was ever said about Barney being related to Mr. Slate ever again.
that, Mr. Slate?
Fred's car is so cool. When he needs a trunk to pull out tools for a flat tire, it's there. Later on, the trunk just disappears when he doesn't need it. And when Fred needs another seat so the girls can come along, the car lengthens and comes with another seat upon the need at the time. And then the seat's gone again. In this particular episode, I wonder if they meant to put Fred's feet pointing up the wrong way to signify his mangled condition, or were they just in a hurry?
Now I know what a pizza feels like.
When Barney gets a big cat to threaten Fred with over a boundary dispute, the property line seems to move on its own. Well, I don't want to ruin your childhood, but where's the holes in the floor for their feet to push the bus along?
You unlock this door with the key of imagination.
And when they showed us the inside of the bus, where did all the people go? Later in that episode, Fred's arm turns orange. In the episode, The Rose Rock Caper, Fred is thrown out of a window from a very tall building, but when he lands, Barney is very uncharacteristically unemotional about the whole thing. He doesn't blink, he doesn't ask Fred if he's okay, and then suddenly Barney becomes Fred.
Believe it or not.
Also in that episode, Barney shows us he can put his shirt on in a split second. I have noticed that people tend to change clothes really fast on this show.
Mr. Flintstone, Mr. Flintstone,
Check out Fred's hat. It literally disappears right in front of our very eyes.
That's incredible!
Keep your eye on Barney's phone.
Could it be Fred Flintstone after all these years?
Who's that, Fred? Search me.
Have you ever felt like Barney's voice was a little off? Well, Mel Blanc was in a near-fatal car crash towards the beginning of Season 2 of The Flintstones. And while he was getting better, Dawes Butler had to take his place for several episodes.
Well, whoever it is, he's got a box of candy and some flowers with him.
Here's another episode where Barney shows off his ability to change clothes at super speed. 1 second he's in a fancy dinner outfit, then he's playing the piano in his regular duds, and then he's back in a suit again. When Fred gets a camera, he forces the entire world to watch home movies, and in one scene he counts Pebble's fingers to 10. But we all know cartoon characters only have 3 fingers and a thumb for a total of 8.
9, 10, right, go!
You know, if this wasn't a cartoon, I might wonder about Fred eating the plates along with the pies. Now, TV shows may not have been completely perfect back then, but they had the most important ingredient of all. They all had heart. They were fun to watch, and the whole family could enjoy them. Check out all my other TV Crazy Man classic TV and movie videos for great nostalgia, facts, goofs, bloopers, and more. And if you happen to love animation as much as me, when you get a chance, check out my other channel, Freddy Cat Cartoons, for original cartoons that I put together myself. Please subscribe to TV Crazy Man if you haven't already. Hit the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And please don't forget to comment. Let me know what you thought about the video and share your memories of the Flintstones or any other classic TV show.
So long, fellas.
And good luck and Scooby-Dooby-Doodly-Doo.